just wanna talk about some books. Hey, I just wanna talk about some books. Talk about some books. Talk about some books. Hey, I just wanna talk about some books with you.
Hey everybody, I'm Joe.
And I'm JoJo, and this is Canonical Nonsense.
And we are just two Joe Schmoes reading books.
And as you know by now, we're going to take a look at the dragon canon, and we're going to look at the portrayal of dragons in modern fantasy.
And today we are delving into the middle grade with How to Train Your Dragon by Cressida Cowell. Before we begin, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on the book series How to Train Your Dragon. So this book is the first in this series, which is a 12-book series. It was published in 2003 and is the first middle grade book we are covering on this podcast. Cressida Cowell is a children's book author and illustrator, so these books are both written and illustrated by her. And she has a really wonderful style of illustration, and we'll probably talk about that too. Her other books include The Wizard of Once, Which Way to Anywhere, and Emily Brown. So I don't think I've ever read any of those. Some of them do sound familiar, like I've seen them. I don't know. Have you seen any of those or read any of those when you were a child?
One sounds familiar, but I think we're just probably 5 years too old for these books. You know what I mean?
We were children when these were. I bought the How to Train Your Dragon book at a Scholastic book fair when I was in elementary school. So
Oh my God, wow. So cool.
this is the book from that. Like I found it in my house when I went home.
Oh my God, you're reading your book from the Scholastic Book Fair?
Yeah, my copy of Aragon was also bought at a Scholastic book fair.
They're investments, everybody, you know?
I bought so many books from those book fairs. Anyway, she says for this book series that she was inspired by the stories her father would tell her when she was growing up. And she seems like she had kind of an interesting childhood. In the summers, her family would live on this otherwise uninhabited island off of the coast of Scotland, where at first they were just camping, and then her father built a house and they would fish off the island on a small fishing boat, but they never put electricity into the cabin that he built. So it was really just this, like, more connected with nature experience that she had in her summers. And he would tell her these stories about dragons and kings. So she would spend her days searching for these dragons around that island. And she talks about how this was an inspiration for this book, which I think, yeah, if you hear that and you read these books, you'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. A reminder to listeners, this podcast does contain spoilers. So if you want to read How to Train Your Dragon and don't want to be spoiled, go read the book and come back to us.
Right now we're going to get started.
Yeah. Oh, I do just also want to say before we get started that How to Train Your Dragon, the book, is very different from the movie How to Train Your Dragon. So if you also want to read the book and you think, well, I know what the book is about because I watched the movie, it is a little different. So
No, it's completely different. Like, names the same, and that's about it. Not even all of the names, just like some of the names, most of the names.
yeah, some characters just don't exist in this book. I don't know if they come in later books. Like Astrid is not in this book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's get started.
Let's get started. Sorry. Different energy at the podcast today.
So the book starts with an about the author section where credit is given to Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III. So in the mythos of this book, Cressida Cowell has found this Old Norse story that then she is translating into modern English, and it was originally penned by our main character, Hiccup. So it's kind of like Princess Bride.
Frame narrative. We've all read a frame narrative before.
Yeah, it's sweet. Weirdly, the book is in third person, even though it's like a biography about his life. So he's writing about his life in the third person, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, all frame narratives, the frame adds a detail. Kind of like that this book is like a little sad and existential. It's a really joyful, fun romp, but it's just got some like undertones of that, and this is one of them. So Hiccup starts the book by saying that all of the dragons have gone back into the ocean and
Yeah.
there's not a trace of them, and like people are starting to forget. But he once like learned how to train his dragon, and he remembers the old days and he's like trying to write this down so some of it can be preserved even if it is forgotten to time, which is like a little bit of a heavy thing for like a middle schooler.
But it's also why I cannot watch the third movie. Apparently something like that happens in the third movie. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want the dragons to go away. Sorry, spoilers for the third movie. Even though I know that and I haven't seen the third movie, so sorry.
Yeah, this is a pro spoiler podcast. All spoils all the time.
But also this book is like beautifully absurd
Yes.
in so many places where the dial is turned up to like this kind of ridiculous degree, and I'm going to get into that in a second. And it's just so lovely. It's so wonderful. Chapter 1 starts with 10 boys standing in the snow below a mountain where there is a huge dragon nest. And every time the weather is described on this island of Berk where these Vikings live, it's just horrible weather.
Because I need to talk about this before the book starts. They're Scottish Vikings. Was that a thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Vikings came down into Scotland and they raided all along that area and settled around that area too.
Cool. Just you're the brains of the operation, so what
Well,
did you
I
check
I
out?
mean that's not like my area of history, but to my knowledge, yes. So Vikings basically raided like everywhere their ships could go. There are accounts of Vikings interacting as far east as the Middle East. So
Got it. So the book starts with 10 Scottish Viking boys.
the weather's terrible. It's disgusting there all the time. It's this horrible, rough existence living here as these children. Gobber, who is their teacher, he's described as this like huge, huge, huge man with a beard like I think fireworks because it's just like, and he's like 7 feet tall. And he tells them that they must climb the mountain and enter the dragon lair and select a dragon to train. And this is their first step as an initiation into their clan. And if they can't do this, they will be exiled. Hiccup, who is our main character, is a very typical nerdy teen. He's very small. He says multiple times in the book he's not very good at yelling. He's not like the other boys who are like also big and burly, like Gobber and his friend Fishlegs, who has like glasses, which is very funny. Typical nerd.
Yeah, Hiccup and Fishlegs are like the two types of nerds that you see in,
Yeah.
very traditional American stuff where Hiccup is kind of shy and not very charismatic and like spends time observing reptiles or dragons in this case. And then Fishlegs just like is like a little,
He's the one with the asthma. He's allergic to reptiles,
yeah.
which yikes. Other boys are more typical of the stereotyped Viking, and this book is like beautifully anachronistic in like so many ways, like intentionally anachronistic in a way that's like quite enjoyable and lovely.
It's perfect.
So one of these boys, and they're all 12, has like
Wait,
tattoos.
I thought Hiccup was like 10 and then some of them were like 13 and that was why there was such a big difference.
Okay, they're all under the age of, they're like preteens, all of them.
Yeah. One almost has a mustache and that's like that's important.
It's like, wow, that guy has a mustache.
He's got like 4 hairs on his lip and he's running the show.
Yeah, but like one guy has tattoos all over his arms, even though he's 12. And it's just, I don't know, I thought that was really funny and cute. Anyway, they climb the mountain and we learn that dragons hibernate in cold weather. And the colder the dragon is when you touch it, and they can get really, really cold, like ice cold, the more asleep they are. And then they enter this very, very deep sleep. So as long as they are still sleeping, the boys can grab them, pick them up. They drop them a few times accidentally, but they aren't going to wake up, and they can like put them in their little baskets that they're carrying on their back and carry them out of the nest. And this dragon cave is described really nicely. He goes over like the terrible dragon smell. All the dragons are snoring in unison, and Hiccup describes his heartbeat starting to follow the breathing pattern of the dragons, which is really beautiful and like kind of creepy.
Couple of times, yeah. This reminded me a lot of, I don't know, like some scenes in The Lion King, like either the elephant graveyard or the hyena cave, where it's just a bunch of people in a cavern all on top of each other, like piles and piles of like these like evil fire breathing dragons that are just clunked out.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually shown in the end of the first How to Train Your Dragon movie. So obviously, this scene doesn't happen in the beginning of the How to Train Your Dragon movie, but in the end, when they're going through the cave and all the dragons are breathing in unison. So I was like, oh, they brought it into that movie just in a different way, which I liked. So two of the boys fight over one dragon, and we have multiple dragon species in this book. So this dragon is called a gronkle. Do you want to describe what a gronkle is?
No, sorry, I can't do that. To be honest, whenever they described a name, I was just like, nope, sort of just didn't stick with me. I think the difference is because I listened to part of this book because
Yeah.
I accidentally bought the audiobook and it was expensive, so I was going to listen to it. So I both like listened to it and read it, and I definitely listened to the part where they like show the dragons, but they actually have like full pages in the book that are like drawings of the dragons with their stats. They read it out in the audiobook,
Cheat.
but it's much more impressive to look at the different dragons and stuff. They're really good and great.
Okay, so the gronkle is a plug ugly of the dragon world, but what it lacks in looks, it makes up for on the battlefield. They can be slow and, I dare say it, stupid, and sometimes they get so fat that they are unable to take off. They are also prone to dragon acne. So their colors are snot green, boogie beige, and pooey brown. They're armed with all the best dragon weaponry: fangs like daggers, extra spike on neck, ball with spikes on end of tail. Defenses are super thick, flame-proof and scratch-proof skin. They don't have radar. They don't have poison. They have no hunting ability. Grackles are slow to maneuver in the air. They have about a 5 level speed, and they are terrifying in action. So that's what we get from the Gronkle. And we have this really cute picture of this Gronkle looking kind of like, it's very cute. So that's a Gronkle.
Oh, I was gonna say, I really liked this scene because the way that it is in the book is they're like creeping through the dragon's lair, and then they'll like pick out a dragon to take with them, and then they'll like do a little stat sheet summary of the dragon. So it's like,
Yeah.
here's the dragon. So they don't have to waste a lot of exposition and it conveys a lot of information, but it's still in a scene where they're actively in danger. So it's still interesting that you're just getting this like whole lore dump.
Yeah, it's a good way of giving you that exposition in that children's book format. But as they're fighting over this Gronkle, one drops it and like falls like a stone and like clatters around. And all the boys like freeze while they're watching this. And Hiccup notices that its third eyelid doesn't open. So he's like, okay, it doesn't wake up. And then the boy puts it into his bag. Hiccup is like done with this. So he's like, I'm just going to grab the closest dragon I can and leave as soon as possible. Fishlegs, who is allergic to reptiles again, is goaded into trying to pick up a dragon from a pile of matters.
Just like a really mean dragon that like would not work well with fish leg, but
No.
he's, goaded into it.
Yeah, and he like tries to pull one from the bottom of the pile.
Because he can't see, because he's the asthma kid with thick glasses.
Yeah, his eyes are puffing up. They all topple down, he sneezes, and the dragons all then wake up. So the boys flee. Hiccup gives Fishlegs his dragon basket. He's like, just take this one, because he's like, I didn't get a dragon, I'm gonna be exiled.
And he's like throwing a tantrum, and Jacob's like, fine, take it.
Yeah, here, take it. He goes back to grab a different dragon. Like he says later, like, I sensed it. I like just sensed that there's a dragon there.
There's so much good writing in this, which is why I'm really excited. I think I'm more excited about this book than yours, but this whole scene's so good with like the information, and then it also lets you know with the third eyelid thing, you're like, oh, Hiccup really knows dragons. He knows how many eyelids they have and whether or not they're open.
Yeah, he's like a little baby naturalist, which is something that we keep seeing in a lot of these books. Maya also like has that like really intimate knowledge of dragons that's deeper than the people around her. And Rowan has that deep knowledge of dragons, which is kind of cool that we keep seeing this like trope pop up.
Yeah, I like that, the best dragon riders are crunchy or whatever. I don't like it's about like
They're nerds.
well, so it's like there's this whole conversation about like whether dragons are animals or people that you see in a
Yeah.
lot of books. And I just think that like a lot of these book takes like this more whole approach between like an animal human binary. And I think this is part of it where this whole book is about seeing that things are different than you, but also that there are ways that you can communicate. I really like this book. I'm sorry, everyone. It's a children's book. I understand it, but I think it's quite good.
I mean, just because it's a children's book doesn't mean it's not beautiful and meaningful.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay that you really loved it. Aragon was a children's book that we didn't love, so
We did not love that book. So, to put a cap on the point that I forgot, I think there's a lot of really good craft in this scene. And what they don't tell you, like for a couple of chapters, is like whether or not he got anything, because you just
Yeah.
come back on Hiccup having it.
the way it's described is he like goes back for a moment and then he comes back out, and it doesn't tell you that, like, he went back to get a dragon, and then even after it's revealed that he has a dragon, it doesn't tell you what kind of dragon he has, and he doesn't even know what kind of dragon he.
But they don't tell you that he has a dragon until 2
Yeah.
chapters later, so there's
Yeah.
this, like, sense of suspense where they're running out of the cave, but you as a reader are like, "Did he get the dragon?
Yeah.
Is he okay?
Yeah.
Is if he survives these 3,000 dragons that are trying to, like, eat his biscuit on the way out of this cave, is he still gonna, like, get exiled by his family?" There's a good amount of tension. It's, like, engaging.
Yeah, there's great well, what I mean is, like, even after we find out that he does have the dragon, then he tells Fish Legs, "No, like, I got it." There's this suspense surrounding, like, "Ooh, what kind of dragon did he get?" Because he's the son of the chief, so he's supposed to get a monstrous nightmare, as the only chiefs are the only people who are allowed to have that dragon, and so you're like, "Ooh, is he gonna get a really cool dragon?" And then you find out. But anyway,
Yeah, we'll get to that.
we'll get to it. So Gobber pulls the boys out. The only reason Gobber doesn't go in with them, he says, is because he's like huge and he's too big to fit through the hole. So he pulls the boys out and he helps fend off the dragons as they flee. He like throws the boys off the mountain so they plunge into this ice cold water. The dragons are like biting at their legs. And after that, he like yells at them and she's like, "What are you doing?" And then he tells them that they must train their dragons themselves. They are not to have any help, and that they have 4 months to do so.
A great scene too. They're like being chased for multiple pages.
Yeah.
And then as someone who likes action on page, this wasn't super descriptive. It was more of like a watercolor painting of an action scene, but it's still very fun. Gobber like throws his axe, gets one right in the chest, and then they go down. And then dragons are like all kind of cowardly, which they establish early and is very important later in the book. And so they all scatter. Gobber's just like, it's a waste of a good axe.
I forgot that. But he then tells them, so at the end of this 4 months, we have our Thursday celebration. So Thor's Day, spelled like the god Thor. Thursday celebration.
Which is a great joke. No notes.
So funny. Where you have to display that you have properly trained your dragon as the next step of this initiation. And if you can't do that, then you'll be exiled. So the threat of exile still looming. So the two boys, they are walking back, and Fish Legs is like, "I'm so sorry you didn't get a dragon. You're going to be exiled now." And Hiccup is like, "No, I did. I went back and I found one. I sensed that it was there. I don't know how I knew, but I knew." And
He's like, yeah, Destiny was kind of like, hey, you should take this dragon. And he was in the dark, so I didn't even see him, but I like sensed him, and then he was there. And then I took him, and like my grandfather has said that I'm destined for greatness, but like, whatever, it's not really important.
yeah, so you think that this dragon's going to be a cool dragon. They open up the basket, they look inside, and it's this incredibly tiny dragon. It's the smallest, he says it's like the smallest dragon he's ever seen. And it's described as probably a garden or a common. So the garden or the common dragon is also indistinguishable from the basic brown dragon. So I'll just read the description. The common or garden and the basic brown. The common or garden and the basic brown are so similar that they can be dealt with together. These are the most familiar breeds, the ones we instantly think of when we say dragons. They are poor hunters, but they are easy to train. These dragons are the best kind of family pets, although as with a lion or a tiger, they should never be left unsupervised with very young children, which is such a good line. Not children, just very young children. So our statistics are the colors are green and yellow, all shades of brown, armed with basic teeth and claws. Defenses are prickly spines. They don't have radar or poison. They are lethargic hunters. They are swift in retreat, and they are good when angry. So that's our stats for the basic brown or the garden or common, which he's called the garden or common multiple times throughout the book, which is very funny that they say both every single time. Anyway, so they're like kind of like, well, okay.
Yeah, a lot of this book is about Hiccup being told that he has to be great and he's the chief, so he deserves to be in charge and he's got to do all this stuff. And Hiccup like looking at himself and being like, nah, man, that really ain't me.
Me? What do you mean? You want me to do this?
Yeah. It's so good. He's such a little boy. It's just I love it.
The other boys make fun of Hiccup's dragon, which yawns at that point, and it shows that it has no teeth. So Snotlout, who's the one with the tattoos, who is his cousin. So his father is the brother of the chief.
Oh, yeah, and Snotlout wants to be chief. They established that almost
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah, and Snotlout he does take a monstrous nightmare, which he's not allowed to do.
Because only chiefs can have it. But he's like, I'm gonna be chief one day.
And monstrous nightmares, they have, like, double extendable claws, which I don't extra extendable claws, which is such a I don't know why that made me laugh every time they talked about it, but it did. And the name sticks, so they start calling the dragon Toothless. Snotlout also talks about when he's chief, like, he's like, "When I'm chief, I'm gonna exile all of you," which is seditious, I guess.
The implication is Snotlout is telling Hiccup, like, when you grow up, I'm gonna be stronger than you, and I'm gonna take your dad's stuff for myself because you're not gonna inherit it. Pretty basic stuff. And it's kind of like whatever. It is very treasonous, but it's also just sort of like schoolhouse bullies.
Yeah. He also challenges Hiccup to a duel after the Thursday celebration. We don't get that in this book. I don't know.
Well, if we know why that doesn't happen, because there wasn't really an after.
Well, yeah.
But we'll get to that.
Hiccup and Fishlegs, so they put their dragons under their beds while they're still hibernating and wait for them, or like put them near the fire, I think.
Yeah, it takes them like 3 weeks for them to wake up again.
Yeah. And while they're waiting, Gobber recommends this book. He's like, there's a book called How to Train Your Dragon. It's in the fireplace in like the Great Hall. Like it's inside the fireplace.
Well, that's because they stole it from the meatheads. So it's like it's a stolen library book, which is just a very fun, like they stole a different Vikings clan's library book. They're hiding it in their fireplace in their great hall.
Like in the fire, though. It's like the worst place to hide a book. I guess you wouldn't look there though.
I mean, I stare into fireplaces all the time.
And so Fishlegs and Hiccup go because they're like, okay, we need to figure this out because we're not going to be able to figure this out by ourselves. And he looks at it, he finds it, he looks at it, he's like, oh, here it is.
It seems like a very ornate book.
So yeah, we should describe this book because it's so funny. Yeah, there's this like beautiful like illustration of the book inside the book.
Yeah, so they get this book out, and it seems like a hefty book. Like it's got stuff all around it, and then they open it up, and it's got like a preface by the author, which is funny because this is the second book that starts sort of with like a preface by the author. It's like a frame narrative inside of a frame narrative because that's how to Train Your Dragon, this book that you're reading, starts. And it talks about who he is and like how he came to this knowledge and all that stuff. And you're like, oh, okay, I wonder what this book is gonna say.
And the whole book is inside this book, like as an illustrated book. So it says How to Train Your Dragon by Professor Yabish. And then he has like all these honors. It says BA, MA honors. It's like, from where? And then it's published by Big Axe Books, 10th anniversary edition. Winner for the best book for Barbarians Gold Award.
Award-winning book.
And then there's a copyright page, which is amazing. It says, this book is dedicated to Mommy, with love from your dearest Yob. And then the copyright is for Professor Yavish, and the date is the Dark Ages, which is great. And then the publishers, Big Axe Books Limited, would like to point out that they take no responsibility whatsoever for any injuries that may occur as a result of any person or persons following the advice given in this book. Thank you for attention. And then it has some graffiti on it. It says, Beowulf is a softie. And then someone responded, come here and say that. And then my dad is tougher than your dad. No way. My dad could have your dad for breakfast, things like that. And then there's the Meathead Public Library stamps showing like when people have taken it out. And it says, do not remove this book or we will bash you. So there we go. It was removed though. And we have like a whole about the author page, which is great. And like a little drawing of him. And then it says, chapter, the first and last. The golden rule of dragon training is to ... yell at it. The louder, the better. The end. And then it has the back of the book, which is so cute, where like the blurb on the back of the book is longer than the book itself. And then it also has the price. And the price to buy this book is 1 smallish chicken and 20 oysters, which is really cute.
There's that level of unnecessarily adorable, hilarious detail throughout this book. It's a really good book.
It's so wonderful. Yeah, it's just so wonderful. I loved it. And Hiccup like kind of loses it at that point. He's like, what? I obviously cannot yell at this dragon. I'm not good at yelling. So this isn't going to work for me.
I really appreciate that yelling is a skill. Like you could do squats and lift weights and you could also like work on your yelling.
Yeah. So the next day he's like trying to figure out what to do. He talks to his grandfather, whose name is Old Wrinkly, and he gives him a pep talk. He's like, oh, you'll find your own way to train the dragon. You're always watching them up on the mountain. You can like talk to them. You've learned their language, which is maybe forbidden, stoic. outlawed the practice of speaking. It's called Dragonese.
It's interesting because old Wrinkly is like probably Stoic's dad, you know?
Yeah, I guess, right? Unless it's his grandfather on
They
his
don't
mother's side.
explain, so I'm just going to assume.
His mother's name is Valhalla Rama.
It's just a great name.
Both his parents are alive, which is super rare. Anyway, he is so embarrassed that his grandfather knows that because apparently it's like really embarrassing to be interested in dragons in that way. It's like the nerdy thing to do and you get made fun of for it. And he's like, "Don't tell people that I'm interested in dragons."
One of the dragons is maybe vegetarian, and that's sort of like a frowned on thing. I wonder if it's not necessarily nerdy, like it's like kind of nerdy in the you go outside sort of way.
Like it's the you have a strong interest, so that's bad kind of thing that like 12-year-olds are so mean about. Or maybe it's like the horse girl thing. It's like, "Oh, you're a horse girl." And it's always looked down upon. It's like, "So what if someone likes horses? That's great." Or like has like a hyperfixation on something. People get mean about it because people are mean.
Oh, Hiccup the horse girl.
Yeah, he's a horse girl. He is.
I think that's great. This is a pro horse girl podcast.
We're pro horse girl podcast. Yeah, we said it before. We cut then to the ocean near Berk.
Wait, I do think we need to go back because is this the part where
Yeah.
he talks about doing things the hard way? Because that's like a really important theme in this.
He also talks about he's like, all dragons are, because Hiccup is like, my dragon is so small. And then old Wrinkly's like, all dragons are small compared to sea dragons. But no one's seen a sea dragon who is alive. And so he's like, they're not real. And old Wrinkly's like,
Yeah. That is like really important for like later. But this scene is actually really important because Hiccup is really down because he can't really like be a Viking in the way that his dad is. And old Wrinkly is like, yeah, you're not going to be a Viking in the way that your dad wants to be. You're going to be a Viking in a way that's, well, kind of better because this is a weird way to run a society is like the vibe you get from him.
Yeah.
But also he's like, you have imagination and stuff like that. You're the hero of the future. You're going to find your own way to do it. And it's not going to be the easy way like all of these other people. It's going to have to be the hard way.
And it's a lovely little conversation that he has. So after that, we cut to the ocean near Berk, where a sea dragon is sleeping. Its eyelids start to flutter after being in this food coma for centuries. I think it says it's 600 years. After it ate a bunch of Roman triremes.
It ate a legion. I don't know how many people that are, but it seems like a lot.
Oh, 5,000. Yeah, a lot of Romans.
We haven't really talked about the descriptions in this book, and I think that's a real shame because they're perfect and beautiful. Like you never get a real strong sense of like where things are like next to each other, but you get a real strong sense of the environment of the gray skies and the like snow and the rain that's like in all of these scenes.
Yeah, and how gross you feel.
But also the sea dragon is like just such a beautiful example because he's basically described as the sea floor. He's been sleeping for so long that part of him is partially buried and he's like a rock formation on it, and there's barnacles that have grown on and crusted over him over the years in a way that seems ornamental and in a way that seems like armor.
Yeah. Oh, I have the quote actually.
Yeah, read that.
He had been there so long, the sea dragon, that he had almost seemed part of the ocean floor itself, a great underwater mountain covered in shells and barnacles, some of his limbs half buried in the sand. Generation after generation of little hermit crabs had been born and had died in this dragon's ears. Hundreds and hundreds of years he'd slept, because he'd had a rather large meal. He'd had the luck to catch a Roman legion camping on a clifftop. And it says that he ate horses, chariots, shields, and spears. The entire lot went down the ravenous reptilian gullet. And while things such as a golden chariot wheels are an additional source of fiber for a dragon's diet, they do take some time to digest. And it talks about how all of the sea life is like, oh no, when his eyelids start to flutter.
There's sense of time and scale because he doesn't wake all of at once. He starts waking up and then everything like gets the F out of there, which is really cool. It's not just like he's big. There are no longer like whales in this part anymore.
Yeah, these descriptions are really wonderful. Read this book is I think what we're saying. Anyway, Toothless finally wakes up and he demands to be fed in the dragon language so Hiccup can understand what he's asking for. There's like a clicking part of this language where he's like click, click, clicking, which reminds me of the summer dragon.
I do have to say it's like really cute in the audiobook because I was listening to this.
Oh, yeah. What did it sound like?
Well, so David Tennant was like, I apologize, but I'm going to translate this into English for people who are not familiar with Dragonese, just like to be, it's just cute.
That's super cute. Like it's in italics and it is in a different font. So it's in this kind of like scary font. So it, gives you the sense in the written version that this is like this kind of sinuous language. He releases Toothless into his father's room, whose name is Stoic, because there are mice in there. And he's like, well, he can eat those. Because like he tries to eat the cat and he's like, you cannot eat the cat. Stoic then walks in and he's like, oh, is this your dragon? He's so small. And Fishlegs is like, oh no, it's a very special, very rare royal dragon called a Toothless Daydream. And Stoic is like, oh, that's great, son. And he walks out. He's like, sure, I believe that.
Stoic's so great because he like in his heart loves his son and thinks he's doing a great job and is just like he's got some blinders on, but he's otherwise a good man.
Yeah. He's definitely falls into that category that we see often in these books that we've been reading of dad who does not understand his son at all, but does deeply love him, which or daughter, which seems to happen again and again in all of these books. Anyway, his dragons are there with him. They're both monstrous nightmares. He has two. And they're like snipping at Toothless and they're like, we're gonna kill you. And Toothless is like
They're literally plotting his death
Yeah.
in Dragonese because they assume that nobody can hear them.
Yeah, and Hiccup's like, "Oh, I can't just like leave him out of with them at night or he's gonna die." It really reminded me, like, I don't know why, but the cat in Watership Down.
No, I haven't read Watership Down.
Have you seen the movie?
Nope.
Oh, you should watch that.
All right, well,
Well, the book is really good too. You should read the book. But another really wonderful children's book. That's like, good for all ages. But the cat is like catches one of the rabbits and is like holding it down and he's like, "Can you run?" "I think not." And he's like just really evil. It reminded me of these dragons.
this is probably a deeper cut, or maybe equivalently deep cut. The Siamese cats and like Aristocat.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Aristocats, great movie. I think it's been 20 years.
Yeah, they remind you of evil cats. Also, I don't think you can watch the Aristocats. I don't think it's on the streaming services
Wow.
because it's like it has some problematic stuff in it, apparently.
I mean, the Siamese cats are problematic.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so because of this, Hiccup is like, "Can I put Toothless in my room?" And so it's like, "No, dragons don't stay in your room. They're not pet." And just to clarify, the Stoics dragons described as the size of panthers. So they're not like dragon size. They're like kind of small for dragons.
They're not like house size. I mean, dragons in this book come from kitten to mountain. So
Yeah, the scale
there's
is
a lot of space, but I do think that the dragons people tend to keep are like large cat size, like tiger, not elk sized or
says that they ride them into battle.
so maybe horse sized?
Yeah, maybe horse size, but these are smaller than
Let's put it this way, dear listeners, we see kitten sized, we see panther sized, and then we see mountain sized.
big, maybe bigger than a mountain, really. Island size. Anyway, that night he smuggles Toothless into bed with him because again, he's afraid that Stoics dragons will kill him. And he puts him into his bed and he's warm for the first time in months because when dragons are awake, they're like little radiators. When he's describing how warm he is, it's really sweet because it's described as like if you have an extra blanket, it's not manly. So he's shivering every single night for like months and months in the winter. And he finally is able to finally sleep, which is really sweet and also really sad.
Also, Toothless sucks so hard for most of it, including this, where like there's a whole part where like Hiccup's trying to yell at him and it doesn't work, and like Toothless is just being an absolute menace.
Yeah, this next part.
But this is like the one time they're cute.
Yeah, Toothless doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't even want to poop outside. Hiccup's like, "Please go to the bathroom outside." He's like, "But it's cold outside. I don't want to go out there." He's like, "You're a dragon." So he tries to yell. It doesn't work because he's not good at yelling. So he then like spoils and bribes Toothless. He's like, "I'll give you lobster if you do this thing for me." And Toothless is like, "Fine." But the only reason that dragons obey humans is because humans are bigger and they give us food. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. We're just choosing to do it right now. So he's like a little jerk.
Toothless internal monologue, and every time he's doing it, he's just like, I do not want to behave for this person. I'm gonna do my own thing.
Yeah. There's also like multiple scenes of cattiness between the boys and the boys' dragons. So the boys are being rude to each other and Not Loud is bullying Hiccup. But Not Loud's dragon, whose name is like Killer, right?
Her name's Fireworm.
Oh, Fireworm. Okay, yeah, there's a different monstrous nightmare whose name is Killer. She's also being really mean to Toothless, and then after they leave, Toothless is like, I'll get you for that. And then Hiccup's like, yeah, she almost heard you. So, like, you can see that Toothless is very cowardly.
Cute that everyone in the world is kind of a 12-year-old boy who's kind of selfish and out for himself and doesn't want to behave.
Yeah.
And it's like both the boys and the dragons. And then like the parents are kind of parents, but still
The parents are so detached. Like, in the scene where he's eating breakfast, his father's just, like, scarfing down all this food, and his mom is like, "Oh, that's nice, dear. That's nice, dear." Like, you could tell she's not really listening to anything
Uh-huh.
that Hiccup is saying to her. So Hiccup and Fishlegs practice hunting with their dragons, so primarily these dragons are used for hunting fish and game. Fishlegs also has a basic brown, and her name is Murder Cow, which is such a good name because she kind of looks like a cow, but he gave her the murder name because he wanted her to sound more vicious. But she also might be a vegetarian because she likes to eat grass, and they're not sure what's going on with that.
it's so funny.
So, anyway, they're trying to get these two dragons who do not want to hunt to hunt. So, Hiccup is like, I have a list of tactics. And he like tries to like give Toothless the scenario where he's like, if you beat Fireworm, then you'll embarrass her. And Toothless is like, I'm gonna go think on that for a bit. And he like is laughing to himself as he's imagining the scenario in which he humiliates Fireworm. And then Toothless is like, so are you gonna do it? And he's like, I need to think a little bit more. And Hiccup is like, okay, this isn't gonna work. So eventually, after he does all these different tactics, he's like, okay, if you catch a fish, I'll tell you a joke. And Toothless is like, okay, but I'm only doing it because I want to hear a joke, not because I'm nice. I'm not nice. And it's established here that dragons really like jokes and riddles. So Fishleg is also having trouble with Murder Cow because, again, she doesn't have any instinct at all. But they do make some progress. And he learns that he can really get Toothless to get him fish if he has like a bunch of jokes lined up. So he will do it for jokes. The Thursday celebration arrives, and then the Meathead tribe, which is where they stole that library.
Can I just say in the audiobook it's really great because they do like a fake county fair announcement of like all of the activities that are scheduled for the day. It's so cute.
Yeah, well, there's like a little flyer. I'll read the events of the day. So we have at 9 a.m. hammer throwing for the over 60s only. Meet up at the Marooner's Rock with your own hammer or someone else's. Hard hats are essential for spectators. At 10:30, how many gulls' eggs can you eat in 1 minute? Baggy Bum and the Beer Belly is the defending champion in this hotly contested competition. At 11:30, we have the ugliest baby contest. At 12:30, we have the axe fighting display. Admire the delicate art of fighting with axes. At 2 p.m., we have the young heroes final and initiation test. Watch tomorrow's Viking heroes as they compete. Whose dragon will be the most obedient, and whose will catch the most fish? Blood, teeth, loud yelling. This sport has everything. And then at 3:30, there's a grand raffle and a closing ceremony, which is very cute. Okay. So Stoic bets the chief of the other clan that Hiccup will catch more fish than his son. And the chief of the other clan is like, wait, which one's your son? Because he thinks it's Snotlout. And Stoic's like, no, it's that one. And he looks at Hiccup and he's like, yeah, I'll take that bet. And like Stoic seems like completely just unaware of the fact that there's a reason for this.
So brutal.
And so like Gobber's announcing the boys one by one. And then the crowd is like totally silent when Hiccup is announced, except for Stoic, who's like, yeah, my son, which is really sweet.
So perfect.
So they start the fishing competition.
Don't they just like do basic commands first? And he's like, fine.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they do some basic, like, I think they have to like go up onto the arm.
It's like they do a dog show followed by a fishing competition, which is an interesting.
It's like It's like what's that like dog agility competition, Crufts,
Sure.
where they like jump. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
I
Yeah.
have a weird YouTube algorithm. I think I know what you're talking about.
I love Crufts. I watch it all the time.
I watched one that has rescue dogs trying to go through obstacle courses, and some of them do and some of them do not. But I think it's great either way.
There's that like YouTube video of that Whippet Spitfire who like can jump farther than any any dragon.
Any dragon.
They kind of look like dragons that can jump farther than any like other dog ever, and it does that like jump over the pool where it grabs the thing and then falls into the pool.
Wow.
And ooh, it's a tearjerker. If you want to think about how much you love your dog, like watch that. It's really good.
Anyway, so Toothless, Hiccup somehow tricks Toothless into doing some basic commands, even though Toothless is like rolling his eyes the entire time. He's like, oh, I guess I'll like jump up or whatever and like fly in a circle. And, and Hiccup's just like, yes, the bare minimum. I will take it. Thank you so much.
But then they start
The fishing
competition, and Toothless is a little jerk.
He does like two. He gets like two fishes and then he gets bored and he's like, I know what I'll do.
Yeah. He taunts Fireworm and he starts just like being so nasty to her. And she's just like, What? What did you say? And she like loses her temper and she snaps at him. But Toothless is really fast. So he gets out of the way before she can really physically react. And then as she does snap at him, she hits Killer, who's the son of the Meathead tribe's chief. His name is Thuggery, which is another wonderful name.
He's a great character. I want to throw that out early. Big fan of Thuggery.
Yeah, he's a really sweet guy. I like Thuggery. And then all the dragons are then drawn into this dragon fight, even Murder Cow. And it's basically like this big dust cloud with like a dragon tail, a dragon wing, coming out.
How it's described, because it talks about the general chaos and then it'll do a couple brief descriptions of certain dragons that gets hit on other dragons, but it's not like a long drawn out thing. If you're picturing a cartoon cloud with like a bunch of random dragon limbs sticking out of it, that's like the description. It was great.
Yeah, I was actually curious because you're so specific
about action sequences. Yeah, I mean, I like it. It's on screen. It gives you enough to get you a vibe check. You get some hits in. It's cute.
There is a really, really lovely illustration of Killer and Fireworm going at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a fun fight. And like the boys are all yelling at their dragons. They're like, stop, heal, heal. And the dragons are like completely out of control. So Gobber has to break it up. He like pulls the dragons apart.
Yeah, they like set his beard on fire and he's holding a dragon with his smoldering beard and he's like, that's enough, and everyone's like,
Yeah, so because the boys are not able to control their dragons, they are all banished, all of them, an entire generation.
I do appreciate they give the weight of that. They're like, clearly we've gone so wrong, this entire generation is bad if we want to move forward. And do you want to talk about like Hiccup in this scene, because I think it's really powerful?
Oh, go for it.
It's just that Hiccup is like, how dare you choose laws over your son? Like, what kind of...
Oh, yeah. What kind of father are you?
What kind of father are you?
Yeah.
And it's like, how dare you pick just a bunch of norms that are kind of stupid over me, your son? So it's like really powerful.
Yeah, but we do also see that Stoic is kind of torn up about this.
Yeah.
So there is a storm coming in.
It's like they're like wet.
Well, yeah, it happened. But they're like, it's already starting to rain. We know it's going to get even worse. And it's like the worst storm that we've seen, like a generation storm kind of thing.
They think Thor is mad at them. That's how bad the storm is.
Yeah. Stoic says, well, we'll banish you in the morning. So you can sleep here tonight, but then in the morning you have to leave. And so they banish them to the mainland where they're like, there are cannibals there.
Which, the English?
Could be the French. Could be anyone.
The French.
Could be the English. I don't know. I think it's just like, uncharted land. So at that night, the storm is so bad that it washes up not one, but two sea dragons. And the one is described as absolutely massive, the biggest thing you've ever seen in your life. And then the other one's like, that one's bigger than that one. And the big one eats the smaller one. The tribe, they both see this and they're like, oh shit, there's like a giant sea dragon on our land. And the tribe's like, what do we do about this sea dragon? They consult the How to Train Your Dragon book. And they're like, this is all it says. And the Meathead tribe's like, hey, you stole that from us. And they're like, not now, Meatheads. We need to read.
And then they get mad at the Meatheads for having a bad book that they stole. It's great.
Yeah. They also have an elder huddle instead of like an elder council where all the elders meet to discuss.
Literally described as a rugby huddle.
Yeah, it's like a rugby huddle. So they all decide that they're all going to yell at once, "Go away," at the dragon. So there are about 400 people within both tribes. So they go up to the top of their hill and they all yell, "Go away." And then the dragon's like, no. And then it roars back at them. Gobber's like on the ground. I don't know why he's closer, but he like flicks Gobber like a football and Gobber goes flying into the houses. And then he blows a kiss at their ships. And that blown kiss lights all the ships on fire and destroys them all at once, which is so good. So then they all run away and they're like, okay, what do we do now? And then Fishlegs is like, Hiccup can speak Dragonese. And Hiccup's like, shut up. Shut up. But it's too late. So they're like, okay, well, if you go talk to the dragon and see why he's here, you'll be unbanished. And he's like, okay, fine. So he goes and talks to this big dragon and he hears it singing and it's singing this song. And he's like,
This is a great scene, sorry. It's also a weird scene.
it's a weird scene. Yeah. Do you wanna describe it? Do you wanna talk through the scene? Because it is really good.
Sure. So Hiccup is not afraid, not because he's not afraid. It's just like between exile and dying there and like dying from this dragon, he's like, well, it's death all around me. So like, why not just go talk to this dragon? So he goes up and talks to this dragon. He hears it singing. And he thinks in his head, it's weird that he's singing without moving his mouth. And then the dragon is like, dragons can do a lot of things that seem peculiar or whatever. And it's like, oh, this dragon can just straight up read his mind, which is not explained, but it's not important.
Dragons can do a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
He does explain that there's it's the other dragon singing inside of him that he ate.
Yeah, then he goes on, he's like, that's my singing supper. And then Hiccup is like, what's a singing supper?
Yeah, he's like, I've heard of singing for your supper, but I've never heard of a singing supper. And then the dragon's like, ooh, wordplay. I love it. And he's intrigued by Hiccup then. It's so cute.
Yeah, the dragon has a big ego and likes
Yeah.
to show off and likes wordplay, which is sort of established in Toothless. He's just a fun villain,
Yeah. And Hiccup recognizes all of this in him pretty much immediately. And he's like, okay, I can use this to my advantage.
Yeah, so then the dragon goes on to explain that all things will be eaten. This is such an existentialist description, and I just absolutely love it because it's so dark, where he's like, I'm going to eat you, and then one day I will be eaten by worms. And since death is certain for all of us and we will all be eaten one day, we should all sing for our supper. Which then sort of turns into like when dragons are dead, they sing or their bones sing.
Their bodies sing, yeah.
Yeah, which is like not at all explained, and I'm not even a little bit mad at it. Like, yeah, sure.
Well, when I read it, I thought I missed something because this does come up later. And I asked you about it because you hadn't gotten to that point yet. And then you were like, yeah, it's not explained. I was like, okay, well, as long as it doesn't make as much sense as I thought it didn't make, that's fine. But I really thought I missed something.
Yeah, they don't explain it. It's just dragons are magic, and that's cool.
Yeah, it feels like a fairy tale construction, which is great.
Mhm.
Like, this is kind of a fairy tale. But the dragon's like, so I'm going to eat you. But before I eat you, I'm going to solve all your problems with Snotlout and those boys and like your power struggle. So that'll be fixed. But I'm going to sleep first because I just ate this big dragon. So when I wake up, I'll do all of that.
Yeah, it's Hiccup's like, I didn't tell you about all my problems. And he's like, I know how to solve all your hero problems. So many heroes come to talk to me before I eat them.
Yeah, it's very funny. He's like, I know what you're going through. You're a 12-year-old boy. All 12-year-old boys, they go through this. This is how it is. I'm a counselor.
Anyway, nap time.
Yeah, and then he goes to sleep. So Hiccup goes back and he's like, this is what he said. We have some time to plan. And Snotlout continues to suck. But Thuggery, the son of the Meathead Chief, is like, this guy sucks. How do you deal with him, Hiccup? Jeez. And he like kind of puts him in his place a little bit, which is really cute.
Yeah, Thuggery is like, Hiccup's so brave to go talk to that giant dragon and came back without getting eaten, like something nobody else here has managed to figure out and do. He's the smart one. We're gonna listen to him. And then they just like stare at him for 20 minutes while he thinks. It's great.
Yeah, it's sweet that we have this character who has more of a traditionally masculine characterization in Thuggery, but he's also just like a really nice guy. It's not like, oh, you're nerdy and nice, or you're masculine, like, traditionally masculine and you're a jerk. You can be a combination of those. So it's nice that we have Thuggery as that character.
Big guy that's like, trying to do what's best.
Yeah. And while this is happening, Stoic is having this crisis of conscience where he's like, I should have just immediately banished the boys because then they would be away from the island. They would be safe from all these dragons, which is kind of sweet thing to think, though misguided. But then we have a third, even bigger sea dragon appear on the other side of the island, which may be too many sea dragons, but
You have to understand is that the dragon that first appeared was green, and then the dragon that appeared next was purple.
uh-huh.
So they're they're different.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah. Why
There's
not a hat on a hat? Rule of threes. You start with one large sea dragon. You have that one being eaten by an even larger one. And you're like, well, that's enough large sea dragons. And they're like, over there is an even larger one.
The excess in this book is what makes it. All of their dragons have mysteriously vanished. Hiccup is like, where are they? And they're like calling to their dragons and they're like yelling at them, like, God, get out here. And we cut to the dragons who are hiding and they're scheming. It's literally just, they say that it's because they don't want to back a loser. It's not because they're like scared of being eaten. They're like, oh, these humans might lose and we don't want to do that. So they're like trying to figure out how they can get away, but they are pulled out of hiding to help with the plan that the boys create, except for Toothless. He's like, no, I'm not doing that. That's dangerous. I'm not going to. After this, they all make these feather bombs. They collect the feathers from the gulls where the gulls are nesting, and they put them on all these little pieces of clothing like underwear.
Yeah, they steal a bunch of underwear. They get to burglar, which is very cute. They're all very excited because that's a skill that they have polished.
Yeah. And they give the feather bombs to the dragons. So the dragons are flying out to the sea dragon and then they drop them in the sea dragon's nostrils to give him a sneezing attack because dragons are prone to asthma because they breathe fire and they have like soot all around them, which
The dragons in this book are so cute and like
so
good.
yeah, and so it sends him into the sneezing foot. Fireworm then is taunting him, like kind of keeping out of his vision because he's so massive that she can be really close to him and he can't see her. So he chases her to the other end of the island where the Meathead tribe is doing exactly the same thing with the other dragon. So then the two big dragons meet and then they fight and there's this huge dragon fight. Do you want to describe the dragon fight?
This less interesting, mostly because I think it's just hard for them to describe. They like go into really specific descriptions of the dragons themselves. And if you can imagine that, you can imagine what would happen if they clash. That they talk about how
Yeah.
like their skin is 3 feet deep, and then also they are crusted with these barnacles that are
Yeah.
like armor for both of them, but then also goes on to describe their huge razor sharp claws that are also enormous. And then they're like, imagine what would happen if that, and talks about like them taking bites of each other and chunks out of each other. So it's a pretty zoomed out fight scene.
Yeah.
You don't have an understanding of what's going on, but it's still very.
I feel like the reason it works so well is like it's saying like these dragons are so huge that it is outside of our understanding of our ability to perceive what it would even look like if these things are fighting. Like it's indescribable. So I have to describe it in this other way because they're so big, which is a great device.
It works really well,
Yeah, it works really well. One of them dies and they're all like, yay.
Well, they think both of them has died.
Oh yeah, but they think both of them have died. And they're all like, "Yeah, we did it." And then Hiccup's like, "No, they're not singing. They're not singing. Everyone quiet." And they're like, "No, no, don't worry, Hiccup, they're dead." And then the big green one rises up and he's the one that was like, "I'm going to eat you, Hiccup." And so the boys all run. He's like, "Where's Hiccup? I want to eat him." And he is able to catch Hiccup. He catches him in his giant claws. He picks him up like a pair of tweezers and he throws him into the air and then he tosses him into his mouth and gulps him down.
Such a cool scene because the dragon knows he's dying, but is still just like, before I get eaten, you're going to get eaten too. It's such a good villain.
Yeah. Hiccup, before he gets into the dragon's stomach, gets stuck on a spear that was lodged in his throat from when he ate that Roman legion. And he's just like hanging on the spear.
Oh, this is such a great scene. He's like in the dragon and it smells so bad.
Yeah. There's a cute illustration of this too in the book. And he's looking at what's called fire holes, which is what the dragons use to breathe fire. And the book describes in a regular sized dragon, they're so tiny, tiny that you would never be able to see them. But because this dragon is so big, they're like a few inches wide, I assume.
There's so many good descriptions of the inside of this dragon, which is
Yeah.
why I just want to like zoom
sure,
in
sure.
because like so first off, this dragon smells. It talks about their breath all the time, but
Mhm.
like in the dragon's breath, in his breath, he's like, this is so bad. I hate it so much. And there's stomach acid on the inside of its throat, which is weird. And he can hear the heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
The heartbeat, his heartbeat, once again, kind of syncs up with it. And then he's kind of like, maybe I do want to be eaten. And then he flashes back to when the dragon said, oh, if you were inside of me, you would want to be eaten. And then he realizes like the dragon is lulling him into
Yeah.
dinner inside of him.
Yeah.
So he has to fight back. It's just so cool that the inside of a dragon is like this crazy, weird place, you know?
Yeah. And the other dragon is still singing inside of him, too.
It's crazy.
So he's still hearing this echoey song happening, too. Stoic, meanwhile, finds Toothless and he demands to know where Hiccup is because he didn't see him be eaten. And Toothless is like, well, he got eaten. And Stoic like really yells at Toothless. He's like, you're supposed to protect him. You're a pair, blah, blah, blah. And then he has this little moment of altruism where he is like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to save Hiccup. So he flies into the sea dragon's nose and he tickles it. And this causes the sea dragon to sneeze and Hiccup flies out. And then Toothless grabs him and helps him get to the ground so he's not just like, thrown 100 feet.
I do have to say, he flies into his nose and he's trying to stick his whole claw up his nose. There's a lot of body humor that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
That's I find kind of cute. He's a very 12-year-old boy. So he scratches Toothless while he's trying to pick his own nose.
Oh, yeah. He gashes him in the little tummy.
Yeah, and then he like sneezes and like that gets rid of both Hiccup and Toothless, but then everyone is covered in snot, which is
Yeah.
such a funny way to end the book. But anyway.
Yeah, Stoic then like runs so where they fall, Stoic runs to like protect him with his body, but the dragon starts like sucking them towards him because he's so big he can kind of create like this vacuum in space.
Because he's trying to set him on fire.
Well, he like inhales and it pulls them closer, and then he tries to breathe fire, but he can't, so he explodes. And there's just dragon bits everywhere. And then we learned that Hiccup plugged his fire holes with the horns on his helmet. So the fire couldn't come out. So he like,
Puffed up like a balloon and popped.
yeah. The way that the fire is described when the dragon uses fire is also really great. Like when he's first talking to Hiccup, he like lights a ring of heather around Hiccup on fire. So it like lifts up around Hiccup.
Yeah, he does like a smoke ring trick, but like it's fire. He's such a good villain. I wish that he had a mustache so he could have twirled it, you know?
Well, it makes me like, what are the other villains in the other books like?
Yeah.
They must be I hope they're, like, as good. I hope they're cool too. So, Toothless then faints from his little belly wound. They have green blood, by the way.
Hiccup fades from his like, I believe, blood force trauma.
He's gone through a lot. Probably, some oxygen deprivation from being in there. Anyway, he wakes up days later, and they're all like, "Yay, you're alive!" Because 'cause they're all, like, around his bedside. And then they're like, "But Toothless is dead, and we're about to give him a Viking burial," like, the kind where they, like, push the ship out and then light it on fire, and he's like, "No! He's just hibernating to heal himself,"
Because he wasn't singing.
because he wasn't singing. So he, like, runs, but it's too late. The arrow has been shot, and the boat catches fire. And he's like, "Oh no, my dragon." But then Toothless flies from the burning boat and he's aflame and he starts doing these acrobatics in the air and everyone's like, "Yeah!" And they cheer. And Stoic announces that his son is the newest member of the clan. And everyone cheers again. And the book ends with a note that no sea dragons have been spotted yet since, but they might just be sleeping. And that there's like a tooth that you can like touch that's like left over, is still singing.
Yeah, one of the tooths from the green dragon that exploded ended up embedded in a shield that Stoic was using to protect Hiccup, and even to this day, you can press your ear against it and hear it singing.
Still so sharp it could cut you too. And that's how the book ends. So I think this is an obvious question, but would you recommend this book?
Yeah, It's so funny because there's so many different ways I would recommend it. The audiobook is really delightful, and if you're, like, looking for something for a shorter car ride, an American shorter car ride, not, a European car ride, which is 45 minutes, but since it's 3 hours long, I would recommend it. It's really great, but also the illustrations in the book are really beautiful
Wonderful.
and really give you a sense of not just like the characters, but also kind of the vibe of the book. The art styling really, I think, merges very well with how you're supposed to understand the book and the characters in it.
So the last book we read was The Summer Dragon, where we had these really like detailed, beautiful, precise, realistic illustrations that are like pen and ink illustrations throughout the book that were incredibly beautiful. And these illustrations are extremely different. So we have this really loose, I think they're pencil drawing illustrations. They're very rough in their renditions of these dragons, but Jojo is totally right that they give you that real feel for like kind of the roughness, the weirdness, the kind of oddness of this world that she's constructed. So it works really well. Yeah, it's really wonderful.
Yeah, so it's really great. And I really enjoyed this book. It was very short, so it didn't take a lot of effort or time. It was just really
Yeah.
engaging. When we read Serafina, I was like, I didn't love this book, but I think it's a really good book for 16-year-old girls or people that would be around that vibe. I really enjoyed this book, honestly, and I think it's a good book for anyone who wants just like a short read that's like silly.
I think so. I absolutely would recommend if you have like a young reader in your life, or if you are looking for bedtime stories, this would be a great one to read to a kid.
The chapters are so short, you can just, like, do a couple of them.
And the illustrations are really lovely, so you can like read it with your young reader. But it feels like that kind of children's media that has things for adults too. The audience is children, but it's made in such a way that is enjoyable for everybody, which is really nice.
This book is really for children, which is something that I appreciated. The themes are, like, about obedience and disobedience and, like, what it means to behave and why you should behave in certain ways. Should you do it because laws are that way? Should you do it because people are yelling at you? Or should you do it because you care about people? And so that's the heart of the book. Why you should behave is a very childlike
Mhm.
theme, but they engage with that theme really interestingly throughout the
Oh
book.
yeah.
So there's something there, even if you're just like, I know why I behave, I'm a grown adult, but still we're just really engaging.
Yeah, so these themes are, I think, I agree with you, are really helpful for children. Even the detail of the drawing of the How to Train Your Dragon book is so, like you might flip past it and miss it, and, like, oh, what a loss from not s if you didn't see that, because it's so lovely the way that these little tiny details, and then these little turns of phrases and these little descriptions in the book. It's just a really lovely crafted story, both in the way that she did the illustrations, but also in her descriptions and her characterization of these different people. It's just, like, masterfully done, so
It's a short book, but it rewards your attention to it.
it packs a punch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so shall we talk about the dragons?
Oh my god. So many dragons, so good. I loved it.
Yeah, so this is a book that we have multiple dragons. We have the Gronkle, the Garden the Common, or the Basic Brown, interchangeable. We have Natters, Monstrous Nightmares, and the Sea Dragons.
They do a good job of being like there are more dragons
Mhm.
than we describe. So you feel that the world is bigger than what's on the page.
Yeah, I assume that as the series progresses, we will get more and more dragons, which is lovely.
More and more stat pages.
And those stat pages, yeah, which are cute. I don't I feel like I don't even know where to start with these. The dragons in this book have this really kind of insidious quality to them for the most part. Like even Hiccup's dragon. I guess Murder Cow is the only one that's just like a really docile, sweet dragon. But even Toothless is like, I don't want to do what you're telling me. They really feel like cats, where they're like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. And maybe that aligns with what you want me to do. But that's just coincidental.
As someone who has very affectionate, needy cats, they are like cats in some ways. They're both very animalistic. They like talk about their own nature a lot. Like, this is what
Yeah.
dragons do. This is our nature. It's in their
Yeah.
nature to back the winner and then also run from things that are bigger than them and be afraid. But then they like come out of the egg or whatever. Well, I don't know.
We don't know, thankfully.
Another book without dragon husbandry. Let's go. We got 2 of them.
Thank you. Thank you, Cressida.
They do come out seemingly speaking a language and like have a shared language that's really interesting. They bond amongst themselves or fight amongst themselves. Like, they have the same fights that the people do.
They have clicks. Yeah.
So it's very interesting because in some ways they talk about their nature the same way that people do, but in the couchings of like animalistic nature, they can grow beyond it, which Toothless does.
They feel a little fey, like the tricky
Mm.
fey. Like, there's a line where Toothless is like, you should never trust a dragon. That's what my mother says. The dragons have their own lore. And
Mhm.
Hiccup's like, no, like, I'm gonna get you to do this. And he's like, I might make you think that you're getting me to do this.
Also likes jokes and riddles, very fey.
Yeah, very fey. They feel very fey, which is great. I think this is a very different dragon than the kinds of dragons we're used to. These are like the Earthsea dragons, but if the Earthsea dragons were like tiny and petty.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know much about those kids that Gan fought, but there's a lot of different sizes and shapes, and they think about claws versus fire versus acid. There's a lot of different.
And some of them have radar. It's unclear. So Toothless does get a little tooth in the end, but then it gets pulled out during the dragon fight. So he's like, "Oh, my tooth came out." And it does seem like he is just a basic or garden dragon. Like, he's not like a special, but I don't know, maybe he is actually a special. It seems like the dragons, some of them have radar, which none of the dragons in this book do, which I'm interested to know, like, what's going on with that.
There's a lot of space in this book for the dragons to grow. Yeah, I do. I think I liked about this book is that Toothless is not the most specialist boy. I mean, he in some way is special because he, through his relationship with Hiccup and how their relationship has grown together from like sleeping together, and then also Hiccup giving him all of those jokes and riddles and lobsters, that like they have a real bond, and he overcomes his believed inherent selfishness to like go help him, and in that way he's special.
Yeah.
He's special because he has the power of friendship. He's not in any way a special dragon in this book. He's basically just a normal dragon.
Yeah, I almost feel like if we were to follow Fishlegs and Murder Cow instead, if they were the main characters, instead of, like, we would still see a really unique, meaningful relationship between a dragon and their trainer. And I want the way the book presents these dragons is that all of these boys have a very personal, unique relationship with their specific dragon. And if you were to delve into any one of them, it would feel that way. It would feel special to them instead of it just being Hiccup is the special who understands his dragon, even though he has seemingly like a deeper understanding of what the dragons are saying and how the dragon culture works because he observes them. Like, all of the boys would probably have a deep and meaningful relationship with their dragon, whatever that would look like, and it would look different with each of them.
And I was going to say, I think it is a little bit different than the typical dragon riders that we see, because I feel like dragon rider books have this special connection between the dragon and the dragon rider, and they just finish each other's sandwiches, and they're just so connected. But like with this one, they actually really have to like work at it.
It's actually an actively antagonistic relationship in many ways, which makes it funnier.
Yeah, it's great.
Now, do you want to talk about the movie? Well, just for a little bit.
Here's the thing is that I clearly do not remember it as well as you. I really like that he's younger, which works with like the themes. And I like that this is about kind of trying to figure out behavior, and that he doesn't really win by fighting. They win by trickery, which I think is really cool, which I think is different than the movie. But I don't really remember the movie that well.
Do the same thing in the movie.
Okay.
In the end, it's like a different situation, but it's a similar. There aren't 2 or 3 sea dragons. There's just one. It's like a queen dragon in the movie. But
Yeah, you're just gonna have to talk about the movie because I don't remember it that well.
okay. Well, so by the time that this comes out, the live action movie probably will have come out,
Mhm.
which I could talk for a while about my thoughts surrounding live action remakes of animated movies, but I'm not going to get into that. Anyway,
Cash grab. Keep going.
well, like more so that like animated movies are an art form in their own right. It hasn't come out yet by the time during this recording, and the live action was written by the same person who wrote the movie. And actually, Gerard Butler is back playing the same character. Anyway,
Perfect. No notes. Is he playing Stoic?
yeah, he's stoic.
Great.
Yeah, great. But and maybe it'll be great. So if that's true, great. But the thing that I'm trying to get to here
Sorry.
is that the movie is a really different story than the book. And Cressida Cowell has been asked, like, what do you think about the movie? And she has said that she really likes it, and she didn't expect, nor did she want, the movie to just be a recreation of her book. That she was expecting it was a different form of media, so she was expecting it to take on its own life, which is a really lovely thing to say.
Mhm.
And it does, these two narratives do exist really separately from each other. But going back to the How to Train Your Dragon movie, the How to Train Your Dragon movie, the first one, is probably one of my favorite animated movies. It's so beautiful. The music is beautiful, the animation is beautiful. The story that they're telling is super beautiful. Like it's just gorgeous. Every aspect of that movie is so wonderful. And so when I was coming to the book and going to read the book, I was like, I wonder if I'm going to not be able to really get into the book because this movie is really important to me. And it is different enough that I was still able to really, really enjoy it and allow it to exist as a separate thing, just with the same characters in it, which was really nice. And I really liked how different it was. So I actually was kind of like, oh, it's too bad that the live action movie isn't more like it seems like it's going to be a shot for shot remake of the animated movie. And I kind of would like a version of the book if they're going to remake it. Like you know, like you went in that direction, it was beautifully successful. What if you tried to make one that was more accurate to the original? That might be interesting too.
Work better as like a children's cartoon, maybe
Yeah.
like a 10-minute episodes.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said before, I don't think live action is the end all be all of media, and I think that we should allow things to be animated and allow that to be like a version. Like imagine if there was an animated show that was in the style of her illustrations. That would be
It would
really
be so
cool.
cute.
That would be so cool. But I mean, I feel like we should have an episode where we just watch the movie and then talk about it actually.
Real chance that we're going to one day make like side thing where we
Yeah.
talk about movie versions of books we've read because we have a spicy hot take about the Aragon movie that I think would get us canceled. So it needs to be in a different podcast.
Do you have anything you would like to add?
I mean, maybe I'll cut all of this out, but I just really like this book. I was really surprised by how much I liked it. I feel like I am personally pretty negative about reading books that are a little bit beneath my reading level because I often find that there's just not like a lot for me and then in it and then the quality is also not always up to the level that I would appreciate in my books. But this really like changed my opinion and made me think that maybe we'll read some more middle grade books because it almost like the story was perfect in the format that it was, and it was very different than the traditional novels that we read. And it just like really made me think that there's a lot of good reading that can happen that exist outside of a more traditional novel structure, especially like a high fantasy 600 pages, lots of plotting and political intrigue. Sometimes it's just a small story about a bunch of like sopping wet children and they're like grumpy magic animals that they have to hang out with, and it's 100 pages and you can do it in an afternoon and it's perfect.
Clever, so wonderful, so adorable in many places. Yeah, read this book. You won't regret it.
And think about reading other non-traditional book formats.
All right. This has been How to Train Your Dragon by Cressida Cowell.
So what are we reading next, Joe?
We are reading Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Speaking of like punishing political intrigue book.
We just said you should read some non-traditional high fantasy, and then we're like, anyway, we're gonna read a 600-page book. I started reading and didn't get through because it was so long. So second time's the charm.
You
Yeah.
picked this book for our next book. Do you wanna give us a little explanation of why we picked it?
We've had a lot of good runs of good books, and I'm not quite sure this one's gonna be one of them. And I do worry that it will be punishing.
It can be boring, but I haven't heard anything else. Like, some people still love it. They're like, "It's kind of boring, but I love it." So, I hopeful.
Yeah, it got a lot of hot press when it first came out that it was like the feminist Lord of the Rings or something, which I don't know if that's even a right description, but people were like, it's really good and it's feminist. So I was like, maybe I'll give it a try. And I kind of like fell off of it, just slid off of it like a waxed slide or something. It's a weird description. But so I was like, well, I'm finishing books now. Maybe I'll
Mhm.
finish this book. So that's sort of why we're reading it, which isn't a
Yeah.
great description for a book.
Not super high hopes. I love a Brandon Sanderson book. Those are, like, punishingly intricate, extremely long, so I'm kind of excited for another, like, punishingly intricate, extremely long book. I agree with you that we should definitely look at some middle grade books in the future, but I do think that we should space them out so that we're not comparing them to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited about this book.
People like it.
People love it. It was recommended to me by multiple people before we started this podcast. It wasn't like, "Oh, here's a dragon book." It's like, "Here's a book we think you'd like." Yeah.
I didn't get very far into 100 Years of Solitude, and that's one of my favorite books the second time I read it. So, revisiting books. Try it.
Yeah. Okay, that's all we have today. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and hit the subscribe or follow button.
What were your thoughts on How to Train Your Dragon? How do you think the book and the movie compare? Would you recommend this book to others? Tell us what you think in the comments and tell us what other dragon books you'd like us to read.
Especially if they're middle grade books.
Yeah, give us more books that we wouldn't expect.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.